What's up, guys? It's Ben with 2020 election predictions. And in today's video, I'm going to stand by the claim that Donald Trump right now in 2020 is in a worse position than he was in 2016. And I completely understand that a lot of people are not going to agree with this claim. They're going to say that, look, in 2016, they were saying the same exact thing, that Donald Trump was not going to win, and they were wrong. I perfectly agree that the media was so wrong, and I think it was they weren't doing their due diligence because they called the race before it even happened. They said the race was over. In 2020, I'm not saying that the race is over. I'm not saying that is a done deal for Joe Biden. All my claim is that Donald Trump is in a worse position in 2020. Whether it's the polls, whether it's his approval numbers, whether it's his paths to victory, they just are not as good as they were in 2016. And I don't think people realized this in 2016. People thought that it was a totally done deal in 2016. But in 2020, it is a lot worse than it was in 2016. And before I start to dive into kind of the data of my video, I would encourage you all to please subscribe here if you haven't. Oh my gosh, someone unsubscribed to me. All right, well, you have to make up for that. If you're watching this video, you need to hit the subscribe button right now. Okay, so right now, Donald Trump's disapproval spread or approval spread is minus 14.6. And this is a lot worse than it has been just as recently as like February of this year. In February of 2020, the stock market was booming. The economy was doing very well. Donald Trump was not mired in controversial comments as he has in the past. Like this right here represents after Charlottesville, and this comments at Charlottesville. So Donald Trump, people have always said that his approval has been stagnant, which compared to other presidents, it hasn't been as volatile. But if we look here, this is an upward trend since he took office. So that there was a dip down when he took office, and this was the year of 2017 when he tried his Muslim ban, or not the Muslim ban, when he did a travel ban against 7 Muslim majority countries, and after he did the Charlottesville comments. But now you can see his approval steadily increase, I think, as he can tout some accomplishments, whether it's the tax cuts, Neil Gorsuch's Brett Kavanaugh, the First Step Act. And I think as he was going up, his approval was improving. His approval has recently gone down sharply because of the coronavirus. And I do think with the Black Lives Matter protests and some of his comments, he hasn't done those as well. So I do expect this to improve, but this is not looking very good for Donald Trump right now. But however, before the election, this is about where Donald Trump's approval was in 2016. And this is where Hillary Clinton's favorability ratings were too. I think she was she was minus 12.6. And so Donald Trump was actually disapproved of by a higher margin. I think it was minus 17. But there was 2 very unpopular candidates. And at the end of the day in 2016, the independents and the swing voters overwhelmingly went to Donald Trump, and that's what handed him the victory in 2016. In 2020, that is not the case. Hillary Clinton is not on the ballot. Donald Trump is not running against her. He's running against Joe Biden. So let's look at Joe Biden's favorable and unfavorable ratings right now and compare those to where Hillary Clinton was in 2016. So if we look at it, Joe Biden is only underwater by minus 1.6. And we even see a Fox poll that had him had a plus 9 approval. And this is astonishing. And let me explain to you why this is the case. I think it's because not everyone necessarily agrees with Joe Biden's policies. I think his platform is actually going to end up being more liberal than Hillary Clinton's was in 2016. But personally, I think it is very hard to attack Joe Biden's character. He's made plenty of mistakes in his 40 years in the public service, but I mean, you see as recently as like 2016, 2015. There's this ad where Lindsey Graham is really speaking to like the good things of Joe Biden's character, and I think a lot of moderate voters still think that Joe Biden, this old guy, like super nice guy, maybe he's not all there, but he has good intentions, and so I do think this is definitely aiding Joe Biden right now. I think as he continues on the campaign trail, you might see this number um, nosedive a little bit, but not that much. I think Donald Trump on election day is going to have a lot lower favorabilities numbers, and Joe Biden is not going to get to Hillary Clinton range. So that's one step I think that Donald Trump's going to have to overcome. Right now, if we look at the polls, the independent and the leaners are going to Joe Biden overwhelmingly. We'll see if this happens on election day, but that's why right now I think that Donald Trump is in a worse place than he was in 2016. One thing that I also want to look at, I'm sorry guys that it's so slow. This Real Clear Politics website is actually insane. So let's look at the popular vote numbers. I know that recently when it came to election day in 2016, that Donald Trump actually improved his numbers. So if we can scroll down here, I might not use real core politics that much in the future, but you can see that like Donald Trump's numbers were slowly improving. So he was in the 30s here, and he even closed the margin. I would say like right here is like down by 2, and so on election day, Donald Trump lost the popular vote by 2 points. But you can see even like where we are now. So right now we're in July, and this time last year, Donald Trump was only down by like 4 points, and I think at its peak, Hillary Clinton was up by 8 points. So which is about where Joe Biden is right now. I think he's up by 8 or 9 points. But you can see that Hillary Clinton never eclipsed 50% in the Real Clear Politics average polls. And I think this speaks to the fact that she was not very well liked. Her favorability ratings were a lot more, were not as high as Joe Biden's. But if we look at the popular vote between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, I understand that these margins, like +8, +9, are not that much different than they were in 2016 at Donald Trump's worst moments. However, Joe Biden is eclipsing that 50% mark that is so very important. If if Joe Biden wins 50% of the popular vote in 2020, he is going to win the election. I think with pretty much certainty. So Hillary Clinton won 48% of the popular vote, and that was just low enough for Donald Trump to win. If Joe Biden gets 50% or more, I just don't see a large path for Donald Trump to win. Um, Simply because there's going to be some third party votes. And I think if Donald Trump loses by more than 4 points in the popular vote, I mean, potentially 5, more than that, then he will lose. I think it's still possible for him to win the Electoral College, even if he loses the popular vote by like 4 or 5 points. And there's a New York Times article that kind of confirmed that. That's where I'm getting my information for this. So the important piece of information, I believe, is the congressional ballot. So I understand that the overall congressional ballot is not as important on the presidential level. But if we look at it right now, the Democrats are up 11 points on average in the congressional ballot, which is incredible. In 2018, when the Democrats had a wave year, it was not nearly as much. So let's look at the 2018 generic ballot and compare it to the 2020. And I mean, 2018 was a year where the Democrats just did incredibly well. So it was 8.4. If this stands, if this 11-point margin stands, then the Republicans are going to be even more in trouble than they were in 2018 when the Democrats picked up 40 seats. The Democrats could expand that margin in 2020. And just to compare that to the 2016 results for context, guys, I'm really apologize for being so slow. The Republicans won the generic ballot, and Donald Trump barely won the election. If there really is a 12-point swing, I mean, I just don't see. I mean, I understand that the generic congressional ballot does not perfectly align with who's going to be president because of the electoral college, but I just see it's going to be hard to justify if these numbers in the polls stand, or unless they improve drastically for Donald Trump. I just don't see a path for him to win. And just one example that I want to look at is in Florida, because I know that the presidency is not decided by the popular vote or the congressional generic ballot. If we look at Florida, so right now Joe Biden is up by an average of 5 points, and if we actually expand this, it was up. He was up by like 7 or 8 points on average earlier. And there's one that even had it up by 11, which is a lot more than Hillary Clinton was up in 2016. And Donald Trump won in 2016, but even if we bake in the bias in the polls that there was in 2018 in Florida, I think it was like plus 2.5 or even 3 points in the Democrats' favor. Donald Trump is still going to lose the state of Florida. And if he loses Florida, there's no path for him to win, in my opinion. So lastly, hopefully we can get out of the real quick politics map because it makes everything so slow. I'm going to look at the 538 forecast and compare it to the JHK forecast. So you can see right now, I think we're July 13th, or like, which for the sake of this, so we have Donald Trump at a 22% chance of winning. Right now, Donald Trump is at a 17% chance of winning according to this forecast. However, I still think that Donald Trump is this model is not necessarily pricing in something. So I disagree with this model because I think that like Donald Trump in Iowa, Ohio, and Georgia, he has a lot better chance. But this model has shifted. The JHK forecast, like they had the exact same thing on this model, but they had Donald Trump at an 11 or 12% chance of winning. But then they just switched it to 17, so they obviously changed something. I think the 17 honestly might be a little bit high right now if these poll numbers are accurate. I don't think they're accurate right now, and they're probably going to change in the future. I think Donald Trump is going to go up, but I think if we're looking at if the election were held today, then this might even be an overestimate. But so tomorrow I'm going to do a video on the 5 steps that could lead to a Trump victory. I know for all you Trump fans, I probably said a lot of things that you don't agree with, or things that you don't like. Tomorrow I'm going to show why Trump can still win. I mean, the election isn't called, and anyone in the media that says that they're not doing their job correctly, because there's still very many paths, even though I think maybe less paths than in 2016. So there you have it. I hope you like this video, and please subscribe if you haven't already.